Alex Sill, and I feel honored to have been a part of this record and to have been included alongside some of the greatest musicians around, some of my favorite players. And I'm going to discuss my guitar solo on the track of Frozen War, the title track. I'm going to discuss the process and also kind of do a little bit of a tutorial on the solo itself. So the solo was recorded at Simon Phillips' home studio, and initially the take we decided on to send to DarWin was more technically involved than the solo you hear now, the final take that's on the record. And we sent the initial pass to DarWin and felt good about it, and it sat well, but DarWin came back and said, "Alex, could you do something a little more ethereal, a little more spacey?" You know, he was using words, that kind of description. So I did a couple other passes, and Simon pointed out to me that one pass in particular was heading in an interesting direction, and it involved these kind of Indian-inspired motifs. So the final take that you hear on the record version grew out of that, and that leads me to my discussion of the gear I was using. So the main sound I have is based on a couple overdrive sounds. The primary overdrive is the Ibanez Tube Screamer, which has got a decent amount of level on it, and that's my primary overdrive sound. And oftentimes when I'm playing live or in the studio, if I want a little bit of extra boost, I use a pretty old school Rat pedal. It's one of the pedals from the 80s with the coveted Motorola chip in it that gives it that little bit of extra special sauce. It's kind of a coveted pedal in the guitar world. But the Rat isn't dialed in with too much distortion. What I'm going for is enough of a bite to, push me over the edge sound-wise for a solo, for a guitar solo, to stand out in terms of timbre. But it's not an over-the-top, ridiculous gain setting. So what I have on the Rat is low, minimal distortion, filter set pretty high, so there's not as much of those kind of grainy frequencies coming through, grainy signals, and it's there for boost. And this setup is more or less what I use on the road as well, this exact pedal board. So that's the basis of the sound. And for a little bit of an added texture, I decided to use the Digitech Whammy pedal for a couple spots in the solo. It's only about a 20-30 second solo, but the Whammy added a nice touch. It's on the octave up, the single octave up setting, so when the pedal is depressed, whatever you play is bumped up an octave. So that kind of added a signature touch to the solo. And on the guitar side of things, I'm using this guitar Kiesel made for me a few months back, and it's chambered, so this adds to the kind of warmth of the signal I have coming out of the guitar. It's semi-hollow on the inside, and I'm using the Allen Holdsworth humbuckers, which they provide a warm sound to begin with, but then when it comes to sustain, which is a pretty integral part of this solo in particular, these pickups are really helpful, mainly because they're not potted in wax. So what happens when pickups aren't potted in wax is that they feed back sooner, and that's what Alan wanted. And I have these pickups in all the Kiesel guitars I own. Now I'm going to walk through the solo itself and do some close-ups on my fingers. The time signature that's being used during the solo is 7/4. It's a pretty smooth 7, actually. It doesn't feel like an odd time signature. And coming out of the bridge, we're in 3/4. So my solo starts on a pickup note, starts on D. And the general harmonic scheme of the entire solo involves oscillating between a G major 7 sound and an E minor 7 sound. And primarily I was thinking G major Lydian and E Dorian. You could think of it like that. So this pickup note I mentioned a second ago utilized the whammy pedal. So I've got my overdrive set up here, my reverb and delay, and my whammy pedal on the octave up setting. So this is the first pickup note of the solo. So this note is actually it's a D, but I'm not jumping up the fretboard to get that sound. That sound is produced by the whammy pedal and depressing it down. So again, whammy pedal's still on. Then I bring it back to the lower position, so it's in the octave down now. Now, that little phrase I just played there, the end of that phrase, is a motif that I end up sequencing and ascending to a higher part of the fretboard with. So basically what's going on here is this sort of Indian-inspired motif that I was talking about. It's a descending major second with a little bit of sliding involved, kind of rapid sliding. So I use that motif and use it in a tailing fashion, as some people say, as a motif to ascend on the fretboard. And it sounds like this. This is our Lydian flavor coming out here. Again, highlighting this major second idea. So here we're at a pretty high point on the fretboard. And I decided to kick the whammy pedal in again, to press it down and go up an octave. Stays on here. So having the wet whammy pedal on at the end there really allowed me to resolve the solo, to end it in a satisfying way, to feel as if the line is still ascending, even though it's kind of an audio illusion because I'm not ascending on the fretboard. But having the whammy there allowed me to, like I said, resolve in a satisfying way. And we go from, again, oscillating between this G major 7 sound and E minor 7 to resolving on D. So that's the solo in a nutshell, and I'm going to do some close-ups along with a shot of what my feet are doing on the whammy pedal to give you a better idea of what's going on.